Okay, so I hope that all of you have started with the web API project. Did you started with the basic application that I have given to you, products API or similar thing? Anyone who has experimented with that, creating a API with at least one or two methods? Okay, just for checking purpose, at least you can have one or two methods like get methods and which will return the static list of products or something like that. You can implement that and you can just test it out. So the idea is at least you can start with the creating the API in Visual Studio and then you should be able to consume it or invoke it from the browser. So if you're present in the last lecture, if you attended my last lecture, you might have seen that how easy and how quickly you can build the API in the web API framework. Because many of the classes are built in and you can directly use them. And in addition to that, there are so many other features like authentication, authorization, then filters, validations. You can easily apply it on the existing code or API. Because many of this framework supports these things so that you can easily incorporate those features in your application. So I have updated the slides. So once again, you can download it, re-download it from the Google Classroom. So that I have incorporated the example wherein you can deploy it on a separate IIS server, right? So usually when we run our app in Visual Studio, there is a inbuilt IIS Express edition installed inside the Visual Studio so that it will deploy it onto the IIS server. But in case if you want to deploy it on the actual server or if you want to test it on your own system, what you do, you have to install the IIS server separately. But for that, normally it is available as part of the Windows operating system. So you need to just enable the features available as part of the Windows OS. Normally it is available with the Windows 10. And for the previous version, I think it is also available, but the IIS version might be older one. So if you are using Windows 8 or some older version, then it is also available, but the version will be older, like before the 6th version or the earlier versions of IIS. So what you can do, as we discussed in the lab, that how to install this IIS on your system, and then you can deploy your application, your web application or APIs onto the IIS server. That we have discussed in the during the lab time. So we'll quickly recap those steps and we'll continue with the few more features. We'll discuss how to develop the client that will consume our REST API, and we'll also see how to do some enabling the routing feature in our API. So let me share my screen. So this is the Windows feature. You can turn it on or off. Specifically, you can see over here. Just let me Yeah. You have to enable this IIS feature, right? Internet Information Services, and some of the things that you need to enable it so that it can your ASP.NET Web API can be deployed. So for that specifically, you have to enable this ASP.NET 4.8 framework related library so that you can deploy it and then you should be able to consume it from any client. So this slide is already uploaded to the as part of the lecture one. So you can download it and you can follow these steps. And you need to run the IIS. So from the search Windows search bar, you can just search for the IIS manager. And there, there is an option of deploying your website. You click on that, right click on the site option and select the add website option. Then it will ask for some of the configuration of your website, like website name, then the default application pool, the path, the physical path to the source code. So I have currently selected this project folder, products API. Inside that, you will see that all the folders are there, like app data, start, controllers, models, and other folders are there. So you select that folder. If you have created the solution, then within the solution, you will find out the project folder. So make sure that you are selecting the project folder instead of the solution folder. Otherwise, it will not work, right? So just take care that you are selecting the project folder, not the solution folder. Once you select the physical path, you have to decide which protocol should be used. Like currently, it has selected HTTP protocol to access the website and the port number. So port number 80 is provided because it is working on HTTP protocol. But if you wish, you can change the port number. If some website is already published onto the IIS having the port number 80, it might conflict with your own web application or website. So in that case, you might need to change the port number to some other port number like 8000, 3000, whatever the port number that you wish. And then rest of the thing you can keep as it is, and you can click on OK. And by default, this option says that start the website immediately. So it will deploy and then run the website, right? So these are the simple steps of deploying website onto the IIS server. Once it is done, it will be ready. And to test it, if you select the website, go through the manage website option. And if you click the browse option, it will try to directly open the website into the browser. So see that this is the endpoint for accessing our products API. If you remember that API slash products will return all the products. Okay, so there are 3 products, okay, with different ID. So this is the first product, then the second product, and third product. So if it is working, if you are getting this result, that means the website is successfully deployed onto the your IIS server. Okay? And make sure that you are changing the appropriate URL. And because we have already given the port number 80, and that's why we need not specify the port number 80. If it is other than the 80, you need to mention the port number as part of the URL. And similarly, you can check for the another action method wherein we know the ID, product ID, and we get the detail of that product. So change this endpoint to or URL to /API/product/ID, product ID. So 2. So this is the second product we'll get. So this is how you test that it is working without writing the client. Actually, your browser acts as a client, and you are testing that your web API is working. So these steps you can follow and test it on your own end. On your machine, you just check that it is working. And then you can develop the client and you can run it anywhere on your LAN and test it that the client is able to consume it. So now we'll write a simple client to test that it is working correctly and it should be able to consume the API. So if you remember in 80 subject, we developed the client in Angular. So from the front end, we are able to consume the REST API developed in Node.js. So here in the previous lecture, we developed the web client. So HTML page, within the HTML page, we wrote the jQuery code to consume the API. Now we are going to develop the Windows form-based client to consume the API. So very simple example, simple application to consume the two endpoint provided by the products API. And you will also observe that we have not written the code, how the data will be transferred. You will see that right now the data is transferred in XML format. And even this framework can send the data in JSON format, depending upon the client. So do you remember how can we ask for the JSON data or XML data from the web service, our web API? Anyone remember that? I hope that I am audible enough. Okay. So see that currently the data is sent in XML format. But what if I want to get the data in JSON format? That we discussed in the previous lecture. If you are present, you might have remembered that. Basically, you need to change the HTTP request. Here, the HTTP request is get. Yeah, in request we need to change. What we need to specify? Basically, we need to specify accept key value. Okay, so there is a every HTTP request or response message as header which contains key value pairs. Okay, so our request, our HTTP request should contain the header which contains one key called accept with the value application slash JSON, or you can also write down text slash JSON. So this is something like this. Yeah, I can write. I think let me check this. You can also write text slash JSON. These are the MIME type actually. Basically, the MIME type you can specify. I think. Can we change the font size? Anyway. Okay. So using accept value, which can be application slash JSON or text slash JSON, you can mention that the client is expecting the data in JSON or XML format. So if you want the data in XML format, you can write down application slash XML, or you can write down text slash XML as the value for the request. Hello. Am I audible? Okay, so here basically it's a power cut, and it will take a few minutes to restart the system, and I will join it from my desktop. So just wait for a minute, and I'll try to reconnect. Okay, so meanwhile we can I have joined it from my mobile. So just we can discuss that this accept can be used to specify what kind of data is expecting the client. So what is the purpose of content type then? So we have two things. One is accept header and another is content type. So the purpose of the accept header is the data that a client can understand. Okay, I have connected from my desktop. So let me join it from there. Hello. Hello. Yeah. So the purpose of the content type key is to specify that the client is sending the data in particular format. So there are two key values useful while communicating or consuming your API from the client. If the client is expecting some specific format of data, then client can use accept header. And if the client is sending data in particular format, then client can use content type. Now is it clear the difference between accept and content type? Yes or no? The difference between accept and content type header. Okay, so see that client can send the data in say XML format, JSON format, then that can be specified via content type header. Suppose we are speaking, so before we have conversation, I will tell you that I will speak in say English or I will speak in Hindi or Gujarati. So that is first I will mention that I can understand only this language. Please communicate with me in this language only. So that is what how the client can ask to the server or API, this web service, that it can understand or it is sending the data through content type. And what it can expect is specified via the accept field. And in that case, we are expecting that the web service is able to send the data in different format. it should be capable of sending the data in different formats depending upon the client request. So if the client is requesting for the data in XML format, then the servers, if the web service is capable, it can send the data in XML format. So depending upon the request, the server should be send the data in the required format. So this web API has the capability to know that, and it can send the data in the required format. So basically what happens, it will serialize the data in the required format. So if your product data is in the C# object, okay, in native format, then it will serialize it to in the JSON, XML or required format. And even this web API framework supports custom format. So even you can modify or extend your framework to support the additional format. Like suppose you want to send the data in CSV format, then also you can send the data in CSV format. And these two headers are very much useful, and sometimes this feature is called content negotiation. Okay, so if you remember the introductory lecture in the of the web API, we have discussed content negotiation. Okay, so what do you mean by content negotiation? So client and web service, they can negotiate about the data format. Now is it clear this feature? So currently see that without writing a single line of code, you can get the data in either XML or JSON format, because this web API framework will handle it. And we'll see that so we are not going into the complex details of this right now, but we'll step by step explore the different features of web API, and that way you can learn it easily. And at the end, you should be able to know each and every part of the entire web API framework, all the capabilities of the web API framework. Is that fine? Okay, so I think okay, so let me share the slide. So what you have discussed here, right? You can deploy your web API onto the IIS server, and then you can consume it from the any client. So it can be, the client can be browser, it can be a Windows Form-based application, it can be mobile application, or even any say IoT device on the internet. You can that can consume your API, right? Fine. So let's design this Windows Form-based application. So again, either in the same Solution Explorer or in some another Visual Studio instance, you can create a new project, Windows Form-based application, and this is the UI for your application. So there are two parts. One is the button through which you can retrieve the entire product list. Okay, and secondly, if you know the product ID, you can search the product ID and get the details of the product. Okay, so you can enter the product ID inside this text box, and the product details would be available over here. And here, if we click on this button, list all products, we get the entire product list over here. And this is a simple GUI to test the our products API built so far. And current web API is only two methods. One is one which will return me the entire product list, and second one will give me the product with the given ID. So if you see that these are the two endpoints. This endpoint will /API/products will give me the entire product list, and this one will give me the product with the given ID. I hope that this is readable. This URL is readable. Okay, and one more thing I want to discuss is suppose I want to get the data. Currently, it is sending the data in XML format. If I want to get the data in JSON format, how do I do with the browser? I want the data in XML format, right? Instead of this data in XML format, I want the data in JSON format. How do I do with the browser? This is the screenshot of the browser, right? Correct. You have to use the developer tools of the browser. So both the Firefox and Chrome has the developer tool through which you can issue the HTTP request, or you can go for the third-party tools like Postman or Fiddler. There are so many tools, or some browser extensions are also available through which directly you can issue the HTTP request, and even you can select the HTTP verb: get, post, put, delete, patch, or anything else. Right. So fine. So this is my UI, this Windows form-based application. This is my client, and I want to consume the API through this client. So for that, what is required? Do you remember what is required for client to communicate to the API? Which object is required? No, endpoint is provided by the service. From the client side, what we require, so that we can communicate with the RESTful service. Okay, so see that any client will require an object or class which can talk HTTP protocol, which can understand, which can communicate through the HTTP protocol, which can send the request through HTTP protocol. If you remember, the name of the class was HTTP client. In Angular, we used that, and we created an instance of HTTP client to consume the REST API developed in Node.js. So here also you need to resort to some library through which you can communicate to the service. Okay. So here also the library is available. You can use that. Using that, there is a class called HTTP client. Here the name is same, HTTP client class. Using that, you can issue the HTTP request. So let us see the code. So here is the object of type HTTP client. For that, you need to use the assembly system.net.http. Okay, for that, this assembly is required. System.net.http. To know the shape of the data, that is the shape of the data is product. Okay, so for that we are using this namespace. So this is the second project in my solution explorer. I have the project products API.model. So if you remember, we have created the product model with four properties: product ID, name, category, and price. Not, let me go to that slide, earlier slide. Yeah. Okay, so this is my product model class, right? But here I think in the newer version I have used products API. That's why this is the older project name, products app. But in the new project I have given the name products API. But these are the four properties: ID, name, category, and price. Okay, so this is the path to that project, to that class, product class. So and for see that I'm expecting, suppose I'm writing this client which can understand the data in JSON format. So I'm using this library system.text.json, which has the class JSON serializer. Using that, you can parse the JSON data. Okay, so it is the class, and there is also one more popular assembly called newtonsoft.json. This is also used to parse the JSON data. So right now I'm using this library, and using this class JSON serializer, I'll be able to parse the JSON data. So in the form load event handler, what I'm doing, I'm creating an instance of this client object, HTTP client object. I'm setting the base address property of this class to be the HTTP :/localhost. Okay. And then I am in the HTTP request header, I am adding this key value pair. Okay. In the HTTP request header, default request headers, I am adding these key value pairs. So key is accept and application / JSON is the value. That means this client will expect the data in the JSON format. So is it clear this code? Any doubt in this code? I think it is simple enough. The names are, the method names, property names are self-explanatory. And the meaning I have already explained. What is the purpose of the header value? Accept. Any doubt so far? Okay. Fine. And now there are two buttons. So there are two button click event handlers. First we'll go to the, I think, first we'll discuss get all products list, right? So using the client, we are issuing this get async request. Okay. So we'll see that here the argument to this method is API/products. So this is my path name. Our base URL is this HTTP localhost, and this endpoint, basically this path name will be added to the base URL. Okay, API/products. So that means I want to retrieve all the products. And you will see the method name is get async. So as the name suggests, it is an asynchronous method. And get means it's a get request. So similarly, you will have put, post, delete, request, right? And we have already discussed the async and await model. So here it is an asynchronous call. That's why you will see that this event begins with async. And we are providing the await keyword in front of the method so that this asynchronous operation will finish, and then only the control will move forward to the next statement. If you don't use this, then it will immediately move forward to the next statement, and it is not waiting for the response. So effectively, we have made this synchronous operation. And usually these are always asynchronous operation because we don't know when we'll get the reply. It might be due to the heavy load on the service side. It may take more time for the data to retrieve, right? And once the data is available, the data will be available in this response. So the response message is of type HTTP response message. So these are the built-in classes available in the Web API framework. So HTTP response message, it has the content, and we are reading this content. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so here we are reading the content and its property called result. So whatever the data will be available in this result property. So this result we are expecting it is an array of product, but in the JSON format. Okay, we are expecting the data is an array of products which is in JSON format. So now we using this JSON serializer class, we can parse it or deserialize it into the products array. Okay, so you can see over here that the generic that we are using is IEnumerable product. So basically it is nothing but list of product. Okay. So, and for that products, we are using we are iterating through each product list and getting the product name, category, and price, and finally setting it as the labels text value. Okay, so this is a simple loop which through which we are iterating through the product list and generating a final string consisting of product details of all the products. So finally, we'll have a single string which consisting of product names of all the products, and we are appending slash n to view the product details on a separate line. So this is my first button handler, event handler, click event handler for retrieving all products. Similarly, you can implement it for getting the single product. So there you don't require the for loop because the data is available as a single product object. Okay, the data is available a single product object, and you can directly set the text value of the label. Okay, so there are two labels. If we go back to here, so there are two labels, label 1, this is label 2. Okay, so for label 2 single product, for label 1 product list. So see that I have tried to keep the example as simple as possible, and if you want to further reduce it, you can, for testing purpose, you do it for only one, implement it only one and check that it is working or not. And then you can extend it. Your application can be extended to support the multiple API available on the service side. Is it clear now? I think, and further we'll see that what are these classes available and what are the properties, what are the different methods. So when we'll explore few more examples, we'll go into the more details of this available classes, which are directly you can use it to get the data in HTTP request or HTTP response message. You will be required to deal with these classes. And when we are using this, if you want to retrieve the product based on its ID, see the endpoint gets changed. Okay, the path name gets changed. The base URL remains same, but the path name is changed because now the path name should end with the ID of the product. So we are appending that from the text box. Okay, so our path name is API/product/ID, and for the brevity purpose, I have skipped the error handling code. Okay, we'll see that no error handling code is there, just for brevity purpose. Otherwise, you need to write down try catch and gracefully handle the event. Like in case we are, suppose the ID is wrong, then we'll not get the data. So those error handling is not kept as part of this code. To keep the code as simple as possible, I have excluded the error handling part. But at least one method is working. That means second method should also work. Is it fine? Any doubt so far? Because this is the client that we are writing. This is the form-based client. In the previous lecture, we have seen the web client. So within the HTML page, using the jQuery, we issue the request. But now we are writing a separate desktop client to consume this products API. Okay. For your project, I think you have to do in WCF. So right now we are consuming this REST API. In your, you will be consuming the WCF service. So your client can be anything: web client, desktop client, any client. But there you are consuming the WCF service. Here we are consuming the RESTful service. So this is your this is a very simple application. So right now only two. This is only get, but you have to extend your application for supporting CRUD operations. Okay, so right now you can extend this application to add new product. Then you can delete the product given the ID. Okay, so step by step you can incrementally uh, extend your project. But always remember, do it incrementally. If you try to write down all the things at the same time, it may not work on the first hand. So always develop it incrementally. You go with only say only this part or only this part. Okay, you can go with only this part or you can go with only this part. Once this is ready, you extend it for this. Then once this two part is ready, you can go for the add product details, search product details, or you can go for deleting product details or updating the product details. Right. So I think you know the way for developing your project. Okay. So once this is so now let's run this application. And because here what I have done, I have already deployed my products API onto the IIS server, and I have compiled this client application, and then directly going to the folder, bin debug folder, I am running this application. When I run the application, these labels are the default value. Text values are default value. But if I click on this list all products, I get 3 products. Okay, I get 3 products. If I click on this, first I need to enter the value, say product ID 2, and if I click on the search button, I will get this thing. Okay. So you can try it on your system and check that. And further, if you want to save time, at least implement one method, like only one instead of the 2 API. At least implement one method and test it for the GUI with only one thing. So basically that will add a confidence to you, and then you can easily extend the application in future. Because ultimately, once you know the CRUD operations, you can extend it for any number of operations, any number of entities. This is the minimum thing required for not only this, any other application. You should be able to have the CRUD operations and front end. That's it. So now we have client and REST API service. So we have client and we have service. Okay. So this client can issue the HTTP request and reply. We get the response. Okay, fine. So this is the what we have. The client is ready, and I think we are. I won't be able to start with the new topic. So meanwhile, if you have a question, we can discuss it. In the next lecture, we'll discuss about the few more features of the web API, and gradually this framework will become more easy to understand. Okay, so right now we are not discussing. We are following step-by-step approach because there are so many details of this framework. So we are dealing with those features one at a time. So we started with the one API, then we developed the web client, then we developed the form client, and then you can extend this application for the few more features like providing the CRUD operations. So that we'll see how to do that, and few more other features we'll also see. I am not providing the source code because I expect that you write down this code yourself, and it is hardly one more than one page. Okay, only few lines of code, and your API is ready. and with few more lines of code, your client will be ready. And if you are running it, if you are running your web service from within the Visual Studio, then it will automatically host it on the IIS server. So there, even that steps is skipped. When we develop the WCF service, we need to manually host it on the self-host. So that step is not required. We need to configure the endpoint. That is also not required because for the REST API, it is working on the HTTP protocol. So all these things are already set up. Simply write down your action methods in the controller or the different HTTP verbs, get, post, put, delete. That's it, and your API is ready. Currently, we have hard coded it, but in the future, we will extend it for making it the database connection and retrieving the data from the database instead of from the retrieving from the static array. Okay, fine. So if there are no questions, I will stop at this point, and I will advise you to follow this code and develop the API and client. And if you are facing any issues, we can discuss during the lab. Okay, fine.